Ready? 3, 2.
G'day guys, we're back. We're back for the season finale, season 1. We're finished. Like, scaring the cat, Damo. So tonight, holy shit, we managed to tee something up very fucking awesome. We managed to get a guy on from Montana to come on and actually talk about everything with us. Like, super excited to go into detail about the music scene, the nightlife, the whole lot, and just, just party it up. So, to introduce the guy, we've got Reza coming on, who also goes as SEDA. That's his DJ name and stuff, and he's a producer over there.
Producer, songwriter.
Yeah.
He's a song creator. He seems to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he knows what's going on, and very impressive music as well, I have to say.
He has a hell of a catalog.
So, the camera's on him, right? And you can see. So it's a bit tricky because this is the first time we're trying to do this, and hopefully we've ironed everything out. We've made it work.
Yeah.
But introduce yourself, Reza, and say hi.
Guys, so I'm Reza, I'm 31, and now I live in Montana, USA, in Bozeman, Montana, USA. And I'm originally from the East Coast of the United States. I've been making music now seriously for almost 3 years, and just really made it my full-time thing, dude, and what I do now.
Did he take any recording lessons or like any production lessons when you try to get into it? How did you fall into the whole lot kind of thing and get into DJing and stuff?
So yeah, my DJing journey started a while ago. Originally I'm from the DC area, right outside DC in Northern Virginia, and the electronic scene there has always been pretty big. I wasn't always into it in high school and stuff. I was into metal, just much heavier music.
Yeah, the good stuff. Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, eventually I through partying and stuff, I would go to an electronic show, and I went to a show on the Baltimore Harbor called Starscape, which is an older rave style, massive, it wasn't a camp out, but it was 2 or 3 nights or something, and it was they had really big names coming in, and I had never seen anything like that. I wasn't into dubstep at all. I was definitely more into if I listened to electronic music, it was going to be more pop orientated,
like melodic kind of thing. Like melodic in a way, kind of thing, like.
Pop music, Eiffel 65, I'm Blue.
Oh no shit! Oh, like that. Okay.
Yeah, man, I really love pop music, honestly. But, yeah, so I was more so into that, if anything, or drum and bass. I like drum and bass a lot. And so I went to this show, not to the dubstep stage, and there was Borgo, I think, or Rusco, and Caspo, and all the older heads, and I didn't go to that stage at all, I don't think. I went to the drum and bass stage, and then I went to the main stage, and I saw Pretty Lights that night. And when I saw Pretty Lights play, I was like, holy shit, this is an electronic music I've heard. This is so unique. This is something that's it inspired me. It really got the gears turning in my head. That's kind of what started me on that night, that performance was oh man, this is something to get into. Then I got into listening to it. Then I got into DJing, and through DJing, just going to the clubs and the different festivals and campouts and shit, I, started to be able to play a little bit here and there for some of the production companies around the East Coast, so right around DC. And I had a weird journey from there, because then I didn't really get into production for a while, and I stopped DJing for a while, but that's how I got into it.
Was it hard to get your first gig? How did you tee up your very first gig kind of thing? Do you just know a guy and he managed to say oh, we need a slot filled, and you fell in, or?
I had rubbed shoulders with okay, so back then I made friends with people that became the biggest production company, like around, one of the biggest production companies around the East Coast. Like,
It's like, you know, being in the right place at the right time, networking, socializing, and just like, you know, putting your name out there. Because unless you put your name out there, you don't really, unless you try, you don't succeed, right? Like, you have to actually, you know, make it work to an extent. So then after that, like, did you get nervous, like going up and how many people did you play for in your first gig and stuff like that?
and like,
Right?
a lot with that. Yeah, with that dude Chad specifically, like this is all in the light when all the Base Nectar stuff was coming to light and all that stuff, and like all the Space Jesus and all the allegations and people, you know, getting canceled. Um, Chad was outed by a lot of people, and he definitely like he's not a part of Badass anymore. I think Badass still exists, and I think that I'm pretty sure they're still throwing shows. But the last that so this is something that I know for sure. This is some USA club gossip that's like kind of coming to light now. Um, sorry to go.
That's fine. That's hectic though.
We're gonna have
Pretty crazy.
Just in case, like, if anyone's going to be asking what's going on, so it's It's actually 2 a.m. in the morning over here.
No, but it's like the mic,
Yeah, but who cares about that? Who cares about that, right? But it's actually 2 a.m. in the morning over here, and then we're doing this podcast as just.
We're a bit fried. We had a big day.
No,
But it's fine. No,
yeah.
I'm sorry about that, Reza. I'm so sorry for that.
So then, with that though, like with Insomniac events and stuff like that, so like, what happened? Sorry, I got a little bit derailed there. So what happened after that though? Like, so after you played your first couple of gigs and like tripping as well, whilst trying to actually have a go and stuff like that, like you fell into production in a way, and just from the production. So Ableton, FL Studio, like how did you kind of figure everything out? Because I mean, sorry, I was just gonna say.
But that was the extent I had of it. Around this time when I was like DJing, I was noticing that like, okay, like my DJing buddies, my buddies that are like, they were a little bit older mostly, but even my peers that were my age, my DJing buddies could only get so far, you know what I mean, in something, you know what I mean? Like they would be DJing and it's the time of a touring DJ is unfortunate. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna tour the world, like when it was just DJ something or another, it's not over. I'm not gonna say it's over because
yeah,
production has come to the forefront. Do you know what I mean? Like it's come to the front of things, and I was noticing that back then 8 years ago. So I started dabbling. I pirated FL Studio. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, good old back in the day.
Roundabout way.
Yeah. Yeah, good old back in the day with the Pirate Bay and stuff like that, and getting a good crack copy.
Was this back when it was called Fruity Loops as well?
Yeah. Was this back when it was called Fruity Loops as well instead of FL? When they changed their name to FL Studio? Yeah.
I as Fruity Loops. Like I was introduced to it as that. I still say that. People like look at me weird. Like,
yeah.
But, so I started to dabble. I put like a song together. It wasn't anything that I had no clue what I was doing. I was in a bad part of life too. I was partying a lot. I was really into bad drugs, and like I had a bad addiction that I was in and out of. And like so like I would have moments of clarity where like I would work on a song for a little bit, but then I would get sidetracked with using and get fucked up. And then it was basically like an 8-year battle with heroin. And after that I came out of that, and coming out of that, I started to like, I had a really good job in DC, and I had that in my life, but I didn't really have direction. I didn't have a passion, and I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I started tinkering around again. I started messing around in the DAW, I started playing sounds. This was about like 5 years ago. And like, I think it was like 3 years ago, I picked up and moved from DC to Montana. After moving to Montana and having like this fresh start and like this new scene to grow in, I got more seriously into production. And like the past 2.5 years, I've just been like, I do it all the time. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but that's like how I fell into it all. Yeah,
that's hectic though. And then so like with that, like how are you finding Montana now? I mean, from the pictures that we've built, Damo, can you pull some of that stuff up? Like it looks beautiful over there. It just looks like forests, and it just looks pristine and like relaxing kind of thing in a way, right?
It is. It's a great place to focus on whatever your craft is.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I was fortunate that I didn't know what I wanted to do kind of when I moved. And when I got here and I got a little bit more focused in music, I was fortunate to have one of my mentors sit there and tell me, like, you don't need to live in LA to become in music.
That's exactly it.
New York City to become big, to be successful. I should not make it big, but be successful.
Yeah.
Make a living doing what you love.
Well, that's exactly it. It all just comes down to, like, you know, the promotion and the online side of it to an extent, because we live in an online digital world these days. Where it isn't, you know, just I mean, like, obviously, like, you know, going out and about to like clubs and bars and showing your face is really important. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you have to have an online presence in today's day and age. Because if you don't, well, then what are you doing, kind of thing. I mean, like, for me, I don't actually have a DJ page. It got taken off of me, but I just have this, though.
Yeah, that's better than any DJ.
Yeah. So then with that, though, it's just, yeah. So then, how did you settle on the genre, and how did you settle on the style of music you wanted to create as well, to an extent?
So, I looked at, I mean, my taste in electronic music has evolved so much. Pretty Lights has been a constant for me. It's always been one of my favorites. But, you know, back in the day, Skrillex first came out. That was mind-blowing. You know,
Yeah.
His first EP with the Scary Monsters and all that stuff. Like, that to me, because nobody had ever heard stuff like that. It was pushing boundaries. And I love that about him. He's now become kind of like, I don't know if complacent's the right word or whatever it is, but he's, you know, he's more mainstream, and that's okay. You know, and he's making his money and he's doing what he loves.
That's it.
awesome.
Working with people.
But
Yeah.
the music isn't for me anymore. And like the from there, my taste, you know what I mean, like because that started to like become more mainstream. Of course, I drew away from that, and I started to get into more underground shit stuff like Nick Grit. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was a huge inspiration of mine, and he's a friend of mine. He really like opened doors to different kinds of dubstep for me, like because I heard Nick Grit and I was like, oh my god, this is dubstep, this is 140 BPM, like it's totally different than anything you've ever heard, but it's dubstep, you know what I mean, like, and there, man, it just kept evolving, and that I landed on artists like G Jones and Bleak and Sayer is a huge inspiration of mine. Immolation, huge inspiration of mine. All these guys, and that's kind of how I fell into this experimental. Because all of those guys, they don't have like a set tempo. They don't have a set key. They don't have a set anything. They just do whatever flows out to them, makes sense to them. And,
Yeah.
and that to me is like a true visionary. It's somebody that's pushing boundaries, and that's how I fell into the experimental side of things, because I like that it's not so cookie cutter.
Well, that's it, right? And that's the biggest thing about everything. It's like, when you got to make music, you got to stand out. You got to be unique. You got to do your own thing and make it your own thing. Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, that blew up because no one had ever heard anything like it. But then it made Brostep, it made Skrillex, it made him who he is. It's a similar thing as well. Like, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, like Rez. You know Rez, where she makes like 100, 110 BPM kind of like glitchy kind of stuff in a way. With her, it's like, you know, Deadmau5 literally said that she is the new generation of Deadmau5. Because he was, you know, in the early 2000s and the 2000s, like 2010s and stuff like that, pioneered his own progressive house music. But then kind of like he had his time, he had his moment in the spotlight and started fading off in a way. But then like Rez just pops up and he's just like, yeah, she knows what she's doing. So yeah, 100%. You gotta do what you're doing. Like, so then, how many tracks have you made so far? And like, you know, how have things come along? Like, you're signed to a few labels and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, I've had some really awesome achievements, man. And I have the amount of tracks that I have. I don't know, like 50 to 100 at least. I think like. I don't know exactly because like a lot of them I have on my SoundCloud is private, but then I have a ton of them that are just on my my computer as well that I don't have in there. So I'm just counting the ones on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
That are on private. Okay. So when I started, I wrote like maybe a track a month. I could get, you know, it was taking me like easily 40 hours to. Now I can smash a track out in like 15 hours comfortably.
In
hours at the most.
15 to 20 hours, really?
That for me was a game changer because now I can get like 4 tracks done in a month. Like, it's amazing how far you can come if you get your workflow and your flow down. You know what I mean? It's the most important thing. But
Yeah.
I write as much as I can.
Well,
I'm
that's
sorry, what was the second part to your question? You asked about how many tracks I've written and then
Oh.
No, wait.
yeah. How many? I forgot what the second part of my question was.
I thought the question was about. I thought the question was about how, like you said in the beginning, producers becoming more and more part of of DJing to the point where it's sidelining DJing. So as your producer, who's essentially sort of almost sidelined yourself, you've had to embrace this the creative medium of beat producing to such an extent, and you're pushing yourself to such an extreme. Do you think that changing your workflow and just completely adopting this different mindset, how does that essentially influence? Has it actually influenced your DJing as well? Because as a DJ, do you go, oh, I can produce this song to fit how I DJ as well?
That's actually a very good question, Damo. I mean, like, I think that's what I was aiming for, maybe, but that's a good way to put it, though.
Hey, man,
like,
we're doing our best.
Yeah. So, like, when you actually do go to create a track, do you kind of put, like, a time and place to it in a way? So, like, for me, with my DJing, it's like, when I go out and play, it's like, I know I can play. There's no point buying music that I can't use kind of thing, in a way. Like, do you
apply that to your DJ?
No, I have to apply it because it's my job. But then like, what about you, Reza? Like, do you do the similar thing where you make a track and go, I could get away with playing it here and there kind of thing? To an extent?
I don't do it with the intention of that. I make like when I go into my DAW, I don't have it. The only preset like template thing that I have is my master chain. That's it. Everything else is blank. I don't use templates. I don't use the same shit that I used in the last track.
Yeah.
I use like the same kicks and like sometimes percussions and things, but I like everything to be fresh. And then once it's fresh, at the end, I'm looking at it. I'm like, this is gonna be played. This is gonna be listenable. You know what I mean? Because there's a difference. You know?
Yeah.
There's a difference between listening to something and having it played at a festival.
Yeah.
Like, not every song needs to be like. Not every song needs to be.
Well, that's exactly it.
Some like my EP, like I feel like you can play all of those songs at a festival and it will go off, but that's not the intention that I have. I made with the intention of telling a story, and it was for the listener. It was for somebody to put on headphones and for 10 minutes or 15 minutes listen to something that tells the story and it goes through it, and that's it. So like. I don't ever have the intention typically before other than the EP. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, usually I just let it come out, and then if it's playable, it's playable. If it's not playable, it's listenable. I can still release it. People can still play it.
Well, that's exactly it.
Quality, and that's the whole thing. Just making sure it's of professional quality. That's my big thing. I want everything to be tight and clean.
But still, that's a really good thing, though, because it's like, some people go out and about and it's like, okay, I'm going to make this because then I can play it here, or they make edits so it's like I can play this at this pub or this bar or this club or whatever the situation is. But to be able to sit down and be really creative and make your own unique thing, and then just be able to go, well, you can listen to it, you can play it out and about, you can do both, but at the same time, it's just like, it's your music being your music kind of thing. Instead of having like, I've heard as well where it's like, you have some labels in a way and they'll tell you have to make 5 or 6 songs in a month and they have to be this and they have to be that and they have to be playable or whatever the situation is to fit their agenda to an extent. Like I've heard a little bit through like Circus Records where little things like that can be, where in the contract it's like you have to actually play by their rules in a way. If you kind of get what I mean. Have you ever experienced anything like that at all with any labels or anything to an extent?
I've definitely experienced labels telling me that they like my music, but it doesn't fit their style. And I have gotten that a long time. There's few labels that have looked out for me so far, and like some of them, like one of them I spoke to you about before we this, I can't really mention, but it's the person who owns it is a prominent DJ. Producer. He's a very well-known producer. His label's successful, and they've looked out for me. They looked at my music and they were like, it's unique, it's of quality, it's awesome, and we're gonna showcase it because we know that your shit's not gonna fit on a lot of mainstream shit. Like we know you can't send your shit into Circus and you can't send your shit into Disciple. because it doesn't fit their little cookie cutter
Exactly.
thing. You know?
Yeah.
Like everything. I mean, I'm not gonna say everything because like, dude, Disciple has a very wide variety of artists within a style, you know, and like so like I've experienced both. I've experienced some labels that have really looked out for me, and I've experienced some labels that were like, you know, it just doesn't fit our style really. And some of them, like, you know, I submitted to one of my favorite labels ever is Saturate Records, and I submitted to them, and their music is more left field based, like it's a little bit more obscure and things like that. And my music is it's like heavy, it's obscure, but it's heavy with like a mainstream feel, I guess. Like it's got like standard builds and things like that. And that's one of the things that he told me, the owner of the label. He's an awesome guy, and he was so nice for giving me feedback and taking the time to talk to me about it. He was like, so like your builds, they're very like standard EM builds, you know, the tension and everything like that, and like, you know, and he was just giving me feedback on what he looks for in his label. So it's gonna happen, especially when you're curating to an audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But still, that's.
I just kept. I was told by my mentor that I look up to a lot that dude, you just need to keep doing what you're doing because you sound like you. Sounds like you, and you're gonna get followers that are more loyal to you because you have a unique sound rather than somebody that sounds like somebody else that they can swiftly go from this artist to that artist because they all kind of sound the same.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, that makes sense. So I got to say, like, there's kind of three things that if I can remember all of them because it's so early in the morning. But first of all, that's amazing though. Being able to actually have like a label be able to go, well, it's your own unique thing. Don't worry about it. Like, just keep doing your thing, keep making it, keep just, you know, and to be able to go through your music like how he or she said, like, actually be able to go, like, it's got an EDM build up and then it does this and it does that. Instead of just being like, oh, you should have done this or you should have done that, or maybe if you added this in, or maybe if you did that, being able to say, like, I like where it's going. That's so good. Because like as you said as well, the whole cookie cutter kind of situation. So many people are like that these days, where unless it fits their niche, they're not interested. And they'll just turn you around and tell you to leave. And it's like, it's not fair though, to an extent. I have to ask though as well. So like for someone just coming into the industry, how would they actually, like, when you first started making music, how did you kind of put your stuff out there and kind of like put the feelers out there to find, you know, different, like, you know, labels or anything, producers, or just to try and get your name out there in a way? Did you ever get turned around? Like, well, you said you did get turned around, but like, what advice would you give to someone that's just starting out in a way? Is that right?
Foremost is content. You know, I have to make sure that I sent a lot of music that was shit to labels I shouldn't have sent them to. It's like what most people do. Don't do that. If you hear this, if you're hearing this, you know what I mean? Don't send your shit to labels if it's not up to par. That's the first thing. Make sure your content is good. The way you can make sure your content is good is by having peers and mentors that don't sugarcoat shit for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like peers and mentors that tell you when your track sounds like shit and when your snare sounds like shit, and you know, and offer ways to fix it, you know. But from there, I fell into, you know, like that's like when I started. I was and like I didn't really know what direction to go. Right, I didn't know if my track sounded like shit or not. I didn't know telling me this stuff, and I found the Defier Society, and I found that through Alex Defier. He live feedbacks in like random producer groups. He would just go live and he could send in your track. Didn't have any direction, so I was like, okay, I'll try this out, and sent him some tracks. He basically, like, you know, it like really dug into him and like told me like a bunch of shit that I didn't know what I was doing and all this stuff. And at first, you know, I'm really resentful, and you're gonna be hurt, and you're gonna be like, oh man, that's my baby. But then if you try it, and if it works, then you can go from there. If what they're saying shows improvement, then you're like, okay, they know what they're talking about. So that's how I got in with the Fire, is through those feedbacks, and then I joined at its infancy, And from there, through that program, I surrounded myself with professional mentors that guide me. That's how I would recommend people getting through this industry. And if you really want to, like, you know, make the most out of it, you know what I mean? Like, you have to invest in yourself because it does cost money. All of this costs money.
Yeah.
And I'm not making anything off of it for a long time. You know what I mean? So it's an investment in yourself, and have good guidance. If you want to reach out to labels and things like that, don't just reach out to them with the first tracks you're writing, you know, in hopes that they'll just be like, oh, this is cool. Talk to your mentors, find mentors, make relationships with them, do one-on-one lessons with them, feedback. You know what I mean? Have that guidance, so then you know, you're confident. When they tell you, send this to a con, and it's going to, if they hear it, they're going to like it. You can send this to Deadbeats or whatever, and they're going to like it. And you have that confidence when you pitch it, when you send an email, or when your manager sends an email, that confidence. That's what I would recommend. Start pitching the label to do that first.
Yeah. that's a great answer. What demo, sorry?
I have a question, mate. So when you went about, so this comes back to the first topic as well. When you found going from DJing to beat making, did you find that really liberating? The idea that you can just create a product that you don't actually need to play out and about? Was there a part of you that went, finally, I don't need to be an entertainer. I can just create something for myself? And number two, do you believe that, beautiful. Good. Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. And number two, when you do get into contact with these guys, funny enough, we actually had the last guest, Boston Switch. He actually was a part of this group, and all he had was praise for it. Do you feel that having these sort of niche groups are sugarcoating, when you said before they sugarcoat everything, do you feel like that's why a lot of these genres just aren't growing? They're so stagnated because they're so cliquey. Everyone's afraid to even voice their opinion that, oh, such and such artist isn't actually good. And by voicing that opinion, they kind of get shunned. Do you think that's going to have a detrimental effect to the future of music? Or do you think that the really hardcore, passionate producers who want to make a good product are just going to stick by it, and that all these little niche groups and cliques are just going to go the way of the dodo?
Go back to Reza. The way I see things about that is it has to fit what they're looking for. Like, say, like with Mark Ronson, when he makes music and stuff like that, you know, it fits that vibe kind of thing. When he makes that Miley Cyrus song, Nothing Breaks Like a Heart, you know, it fits that demographic. Or when you know, it's things like, not Kanye West, but like, you know, like commercial pop music in a way, it has to fit X, Y, Z. But then when it comes down to niche things, it's kind of like, you can do this and you can do that, but then it still has to
fit that mold. Yeah, it still has to fit that mold.
Like, what do you think?
No. I was trying to say, do you believe that these niche groups, if they are afraid to criticize each other, does that mean that they're not willing to grow as a product because there's no constructive criticism? Because I've seen that a lot in these groups, and I think that's why a lot of it is so cookie cutter, because they're so terrified to attack each other, to offer constructive criticism. Do you agree, man?
Like, I think like there's always going to be some of that in the industry where like you can't talk shit about shit. Like you can't talk shit about labels, you can't talk shit about other artists. You just focus on what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like, does that create a stagnant, like, kind of like, you know what I mean, cookie cutter, kind of like, you know, type of feel vibe in 16 and the dubstep scene and electronic scene? Hell yeah, it does. It creates a, like, you see it all the time. Like, for me, I listen to shit, I'm like, well, that sounds like everything else. Oh, that sounds like everything else. Oh, that sounds like, you know what I mean? Like, and that is something that having the correct constructive criticism that we're talking about, higher society and shit like that, like people, shit sucks. You know what I mean? Like that makes you go outside that zone. That makes you go outside your box. That makes you, you know what I mean? Like that makes you stand out. And having that criticism, to me, it's like the Gordon Ramsay type shit. You know what I mean? He's doing that shit because he's molding diamonds. You know what I mean? Like, do you want a diamond, or do you want a nice, beautiful stone, or do you want a lump of coal that looks like every other fucking lump of coal? So like that's what I look at it as. It's not for everybody. You know what I mean? The style. We have, like, at the Fire, we have a lot of mentors though, and it's awesome because you'll have really, really amazingly kind mentors that like you in a very passive way, and then you have the other side of it, mentors you like Gordon Ramsay, and you need both because there's different people that learn different ways. You know what I mean? So
that's exactly it. Yeah.
At the same time, both of those mentors will push their students by telling them how to make their tracks better and more professional. It'll push them to different levels. So you're not just writing a drop. You're writing a story that you have a narrative in your track. You have a motif in your track, like shit that people can hold on to and take with them. Not something that you're going to listen to and you're going to like, oh man, this is headbang shit. This is so dope. But it sounds like everything else, you know? And I'm not into that. I'm like, I want things more musical. I don't want just like long, drawn out intros. I mean, I love ambience and I love I love that, but I like pop music. I'm a sucker for a catchy melody and like, you know what I mean, like good chord progression and things like that. Like, and it's okay to do it either way. It's your art, and people can do whatever they want. I'm just speaking about what I personally like. You know, like I look for musicality. So, there was I wrote it down. Like, the first, to answer your first question, so I like creating for myself, like you know what I mean? Like, do I like coming?
Yeah, because you said
like now, or make music just for listening for me and stuff. That came along again after being in the Fire Society, dude. I remember sending a track in and it had like really cool bass noises and shit, but it was just like my instructor that I sent it into was like, it just sounds like you're trying to sound like everybody else. It sounds like you're trying to sound cool. And that was like eye-opening for me to start making music that I made for myself, not because I just make other people to be like, that's cool. You know, so I love that about writing music now. It didn't come right away. So if you're writing music right now to make sure that it's the biggest banger at the festival, that's okay too. And I think eventually you'll find a path to writing music for yourself and like music that you're like, this is an expression of who I am. So it came with time.
That's such a good answer though, because it's like, you know, a while ago I really, really got into UK garage, and with the UK garage scene like booming again, it's just like every single song sounds the same, and it sucks. But then it's like you can find like little gems that do sound a little bit different, that do have like really catchy hooks or whatever the show is kind of thing. But then at the same time, it just sounds like the same shit. And they're just like, it just stays in that loop and doesn't really do its own thing to an extent. But then, yeah, like that's really good. That's a great way to have, you know, great perspective to have on it kind of thing to an extent. So then with that, it's like, have you had much of your music played out and about by other DJs or anything like that at all, or?
Yeah, like I had like, so with Corona and everything, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
I've had Copain Durham has dropped a collab and Octa. There's another student in the Fire. He's one of my amazing producer, and you're gonna see a lot of him. He just had a release on Bird's Nest Audio, and you know, Copain, to answer your question, sorry. Copain Durham has played out some tunes of mine and I've sent tracks to some homies, to some of my teachers that have told me, hey, send me this track, I'll play it out, but with should be tight right now. I mean, so I'm just waiting for the influx of all the songs I sent out to start getting played. You know what I mean? Like, and then we're good to go. But I'm ready.
I gotta ask as well, how did you feel though when one of your mates or Code Pandorum sent you a message and was like, oh, I just played your track and it went off? Like, was it just like an amazing feeling in a way? It's like, oh shit, that's my music.
In the Disciple Roundtable mix, so it's actually on Disciple. So like the mix is on Disciple and it's in that mix. But yeah, like it was pretty amazing because Disciple is a huge dubstep label, and again, Disciple is probably not a label that maybe not release my music. They might now, you know, my music's come a long way, but like for the most part, it doesn't really fit like their style so much. But like I have like a homie like Sven, Code Forum, you know, to play it and release it on Disciple Roundtable. So my music's getting heard by a group of people that probably wouldn't listen to my music. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That's what like having like homies like Sven on your back, like have them in your corner does for you. You know, like making relationships with these artists is the best thing you can do. Like, you know, because they're just like you. They went through all this shit. They know what you're going. See the passion that you have. That's inspiring to them. They're like, dude, this is awesome. It's awesome that you love this as much as I love this, and I want to help you. You know, so, and it doesn't just come like it does come. Like, you can just send your tracks out. You can pitch your tracks to as many people as you want. They play them, they might not. You know, but this is just the route that I took, and it works for me. But it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, like, seeing, like, music, seeing your art get recognition.
Exactly,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? Especially, like, you know, there's not a lot of people, again, like with experimental bass music, it's hard to get it in to major labels, especially underground labels more so. But we have a few of those here in the States that have gotten underground bass label, experimental bass labels.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. Once again, it's like, you know, they're looking for that niche sound, that niche vibe, and then it's like when you come up with something completely new, then once, like what we were discussing before, it doesn't fit the cookie cutter. It's just, that's unfair, completely unfair to an extent. I got to ask as well, how important would you say it is having a mentor for someone starting out as well, like just breaking out into the scene? Like, I was lucky to have a mentor in the DJ, and that launched me to an extent. That got me to where I am now, where all I do is DJ and play music. But like with producing, would you say it's really, really important again as well?
Sounds like you answered your own question there, buddy.
Oh, kind of, yeah. I did answer my own question.
But it's yours, but
I mean, it's the most important to me. Like I tell people all the time, like when people have hit me up, because like a lot of people have been able to follow me, just started, you know. And like the people that have been following me for the past 2.5 years, they're like, I've been doing this for 5 years. I don't understand. Like, how did you get where you're at? How did you? And I was like, well, first and foremost, like, I wrote a lot of fucking music. Second off, I had people to tell me when that music was lacking. Those are the two things I tell them. I'm like, you need guidance. You have to have somebody helping you steer a ship. You are a sailor in the middle of the ocean that doesn't know how to use a compass. You know what I mean? And you need to have that person that is standing there like, yo, this is how you use this. It goes this way, that way, blah, 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 blah. You should head this way.
I got.
It goes that way. I went this way, and it took a long time, so go that way.
I gotta say, I am loving.
Mentorship.
Yeah, I gotta say, I am loving your analogies tonight. Like, holy shit, they're so good. Sailor without a compass. That's so spot on, though. Because it's like, when you try and get into an industry and you don't know how to really get into the industry, how do you? You need to have someone that says, like, well, I'm already in the industry, this is what you should do, and tries to point you in the right direction. To be able to get your foot on the ground and actually get, you know, make things happen, in a way. So then, with that, I had another question. On top of my bloody head.
I was just gonna say something real quick. Do you think the sailor topic is just, you look very nautical, mate? You look like you're on the deck of Moby Dick, man, and you're about to hunt the great whale. I'm loving the beard, bro.
Your birthday. Only 12.
Man,
Only 12.
What do you call it? I like definitely being up in the mountains has become more of like a mountain man kind of thing. Like definitely, and I've had like facial hair and beards before, but I've never had a beard this mighty.
Well, like what?
Montana's a place to grow a beard. It's cold. It's 6 months out of the year. You know, there's like snow on the ground. So.
I was gonna say, yeah, because when I jumped on the chat originally, I was like, "Damn, you're a lumberjack," kind of thing. That's just the first thing I thought. Like, holy shit, like, this guy